Hey everyone, welcome to the program WRSA Radio. I am your host, Grenadier One. As always, I hope you're having a good week. Well, last week's show was sure kicking the old yawbles, so I hope we can do something a little bit more upbeat and dare I say happy this week. It's not going to be, so don't get your hopes up. I was expecting to come here and tell you guys my analysis of the election and how it was signaling some kind of hope for our future. Well, didn't exactly go down like that, did it? So, Anne Margaret's not coming, and we have to face some simple facts here. In your gut, you know this is true. You've known this to be true for several years now, and I'm not going to tell you anything that you don't already know. I'm just going to try and slap you in the face with it, as much as I can on this controlled platform. Let's kick it off with just a rundown of what occurred Tuesday evening. Now, out of the gate, we have the establishment media telling us that it's totally normal for it to take days or sometimes a week or more to learn who actually won an election. Now, that's kind of funny. I'm a middle-aged guy. I have a very good memory, though. And I remember the election between Carter and Reagan. I remember that, we learned that night who won all the races. I remember election after election where we learned the winners that night. And then along comes Bush Gore, and we have a problem. Well, things didn't go like someone thought they should go, and suddenly a system that we've been using fairly reliably for over 100 years was suddenly insufficient to do the job. And we were told that the old paper ballots took too long and they left too much room for error, and we're just not suited to the modern world, and we had to move to digital systems. And so we did that. And now, election after election, we have to wait days to discover who won because something is taking place within the counting process that causes these delays. Taking a long time with lots of room for error, but somehow it's more modern because it's digital, I guess. I don't know. Now here's where I have to stop because, as you all may or may not know, if I did much further digging into this, and really gave you the thoughts on this particular topic, this video would likely be taken down, at least from YouTube. We have to take it as an article of faith that numbers and mail-in ballots and early voting go into this great mystery box, and maybe that night or maybe a few days later or a week later they'll tell us who won the election. We can't question the process and ask to see behind the curtain, and we can't even speculate that something might be wrong with what is happening because doing so is racist and probably anti-Semitic, and we're supposed to just trust the process. I think you can guess what I think about that. I think you can guess what I think about the process and how it worked on Tuesday evening, but I will leave it at that. And that said, we still have counting going on, and the outcome is still in question at this time on several races. It appears that the GOP is going to take control of the House. The Senate might likely stay split, like a 50-50 split at best. I mean, it's possible still that they could pick up the extra seat that they needed to be in control of the Senate. But regardless if they do or not, it's still vastly underwhelming, to say the least. How in the wide world of sports can you have a president whose approval numbers are in the toilet? Congress, who has even lower approval numbers than he does, rampant crime, unchecked illegal immigration, skyrocketing inflation, a toilet economy, just on and on and on, and somehow the incumbent party remains in power. It's almost unprecedented in the history of this country, and something is not right about this situation. At a minimum, mistakes have been made, and leadership should be held accountable for that. And this is where we kind of get into the meat of the show today, because outside of the issues that I kind of alluded to in the opening that I cannot be spoken of here, there's something else that went on Tuesday. And in short, the leadership of the GOP has gone to war with its voter base. This election was at least in my opinion, was the establishment GOP fighting back to regain control of the party from Donald Trump and his supporters. Every effort was made by the GOP to hang the candidates that Trump supported out to dry. Even, Bitch McConnell went so far as to pull money from multiple candidates who were facing significant fundraising challenges, and yet still made a pretty good showing in these elections. Honestly, Trump-supported candidates did very well. But if you look at the money that was spent on some of these races, even here in Georgia, the Warnock versus Walker, Herschel Walker had a war chest of $32 million to Warnock's $76 million, something around those numbers. That is crazy, and now you end up with this very, very close runoff election. These critical areas where the GOP pulled money and full support out, or didn't offer full support. And had they done that, it likely would have netted, a flat-out win. And we have these outcomes that are still undecided. It's ridiculous. Again, assuming things were on the up and up here with the parties, themselves. Now, I propose that the establishment GOP wants to lose these races. They like being the bottom in the relationship. They want to keep the Dems in power so they can point the finger at them and blame them for everything that's going wrong, and all the while never really having to actually propose a solution and never having to actually commit to policies that might piss off some section of voters that they're trying to court. And this is kind of the real crux of the thing. The GOP is looking at demographics, and they are thinking that white people who support them are already a minority, and they cannot win an election if they just run on issues and policies that those white people support. Now, they're flat out wrong about this, but that's beside the point. They are convinced that the way forward is to try and carve off voters from these dim minority voting blocks. And this is perhaps the stupidest strategy that could be undertaken given the other factors involved, which I'll touch on in a second. Minorities in the U.S. vote in overwhelmingly, Democratic ratios. They, for liberal candidates, rather than conserve something and stand on principles and policies and ideas that built the country and would provide a healthy and robust future for everyone. The GOP has decided that to win over liberal minority voters, they must abandon white voters and traditionalist voters and become diet Democrats. Maybe Dem Zero, as in 0 calories, 0 sugar, 0 principles, 0 cents, 0 loyalty, 0 whatever you want. They don't got it anymore. And there's so much wrong with this idea, not least of which is that you're removing a third of the country from the political process because you've taken away the agency that they have and their loyalty to the system that is in place. That's a dangerous thing. And by the way, this also happens to be the most heavily armed population in the world. And that's generally a calculus that leads to hot, spicy times. And I'm not talking about just the old regular hot sauce, heat up the lip kind of spicy. I'm talking about the burn your guts and inflame your starfish kind of spicy. The gift that keeps on giving. Yeah, good times are coming. It kind of boggles the mind here. Now, I said over on Gab today that I don't vote. I haven't voted in the last few elections. I came to the realization that it didn't matter. And this was back when Obama was running, and I stood there in the booth about to punch my card for the old wet start McCain, who I despised. Okay, I just despised that guy. But he was a better option than the other guy. I was disgusted by that choice, And what made me even more angry was that I knew that my vote didn't pull the needle 1 inch in the direction of this guy and make it more likely for him to actually win. My vote was going to be canceled out by 3 or 4 votes from the metro Atlanta area that were for the other guy. People who only voted because they looked like the other guy. And by that I mean they came out to the polls to vote for him for that reason alone. They normally would not have voted. They wanted him in office just because he looked like them. And they had no clue about his policies. They had no clue about the ideas or the problems that were abound with the guy. They just voted based off of his exterior. And I get that. I understand why they did that. But it doesn't change anything. And I said from that day forward, I was not going to bother with the whole thing. It was pointless, and it did nothing more than prop up a decayed and rotting system that didn't have my best interest in mind anyway. It's a system that sees me as nothing more than a cow to milk while I'm alive, and it disposes of me when I die. And rather, right after it takes the last little drop of what I have before it puts me in the ground. And I ask myself, why do they hate me so much? Why do they do everything that they can to keep me from finding some kind of measure of peace and tranquility, from being successful? They stand in the way of success. Why do they prevent me from building for my children and leaving a legacy for my grandchildren? It's because this system serves others, and it's only going to grind you into a pulp and spread you over an empty, barren field. And the sooner you detach yourself from it, the better off you're going to be. Get that in your mindset. This system doesn't work for you. It no longer works for you. It feeds off of you. It feeds on you. This election should have been an eye-opener. It should be an eye-opener. It should be the nail in the coffin of this experiment. We failed. We can't do this because people are horrible and there's so much evil in the world. And we couldn't hold it at bay. Keep it from corrupting us from the inside and the outside. Now, I could give you guys a whole list of solutions and ways to fix things. But let's be real here. You all know as well as I do that there are only 2 ways out of this. And they are both painful, and they are both hard, and they both require sacrifice. I've done several shows about that, about those things. And while a lot of us are doing those things in our personal life, we're making those personal sacrifices, we're living and struggling through those things, it's not enough at a national level to move the ball. And the more important message from this election, and this was the stuff that I was talking about earlier that I wanted to touch on, the thing that I think matters really more than anything. It matters more than what candidate won what office. The most important thing to pay attention to, I think, was the exit polling. Now, I can't say I put a lot of stock in it because I still believe that polling has problems, and polling largely gets the result that the person being polled thinks you want to hear. But let's assume for a little bit that it's accurate, at least to some degree. When you look at the exit polling, more people polled want legal abortion. More people polled want the government to involve itself with your health care. More people polled want gun laws to be more restrictive. More people polled believe that racism is a problem in the country. More people polled believed racism in policing was a significant problem. And more people polled believed that people saying incorrect or misleading information on the internet was a significant problem. More of a problem than people not being able to speak their mind. And these are not 18 to 30-year-old college kids, which is what you might expect. This particular sample size included a large number of middle-aged people my age, and people who call themselves moderates. What the hell is wrong with these people? Now, you could lean into the idea that this is really hiding or kind of disguising a populist kind of movement, and that the government intervention that these people want would be to correct the government intervention that the progressive left has put into play over the last few decades and has led us to this abyss. But I don't think that's the case. I don't have any confidence in that interpretation. I feel like these people have bought into the ideas that the left is throwing out with a few minor differences. They've bought into that whole idea of dim diet. You know, that's where the Republican Party is in some way possibly reading this correctly. This is where they believe people are. They're seeing this information and they're interpreting it in that manner and saying, well, this is what we have to do to win because this is what the electorate is. You know, they want something done at the border about illegal immigration, and they want more done about crime in general, but they're perfectly happy with the government running your health care and stripping your gun rights away. They want abortion enshrined into a federal law, and they want the government to do more about climate change and renewable energy. Now, guys, I hate to break it to you, but this has nothing to do with what may or may not have happened in the shadows on Tuesday. This is a broken electorate who have no clue what they are doing and honestly have no business anywhere near a selection lever for who is in power. And until this is fixed, and again, we have to take this as it is, the polling is done by this agency, represents about 30,000 people. So it's a small sample size, people who likely more in an urban or suburban area. So, just take it for what it is. Like I said, it may or may not accurately reflect things in general. But until you get an electorate that is more educated on some of these issues and sees things in line with traditional American ideals, all the elections that you run will be swinging in the direction the establishment elite on both sides wants it to. And unfortunately for us, that leaves us out in the cold. And changing that is hard and painful, and it takes a long time. And the only way to change it in a short time, is also hard and painful. But in addition, it's also very destructive and bloody and causes some very long permanent scars. Now, I know which way I would like it to go, but reality is we're far too late and we are far too long down the road to the latter course of action to really do anything about it now. The only thing we can do really is sack up and go forward. I hoped that I could do something a little more uplifting and happy this week, but the situation dictates what it is. Sorry about that. That's all I have time for this week, guys. Like and subscribe. Come see us over on Gab and the Mothership, and I will see you on the next episode.